So many ministries close, churches close down, and it becomes very painful to people like us. Why should they close? You know, there was a particular church, one of the biggest single churches in the United States of America. It was in California. Very massive church. Some of us can go and check. This church was closing down, and another faith was coming to buy it over. Was to buy that church to be a mosque. The Catholic Church felt very pained. They went to buy the building and gave their own small building to the church. They took that big building and used it to preach about Jesus Christ. So, ministers today, one of the biggest problems we have that lead to organizational failure, whether we call it companies or we call them churches, is because of ego, pride. How can I submit myself to somebody else? They would rather fail. You know, I remember I delivered a lecture on APCON Day. It's in this book. That lecture, I had to put in this book. Advertising agencies were collapsing. Today, the first advertising agency in Nigeria collapsed, the first one. Despite the fact it was established by expatriates. Many of the first century, if you call the first advertising agencies, are all gone. Marketing companies are all gone. First research agency is gone. Many research companies are all gone. They are all gone. Why did they die? It wasn't so much about bad performance, about practice. It had to do with ego of their leaders. It has to do with pride. You know, Professor Collins of Stanford spoke on the 5 levels of fall, 5 levels of collapse. And the number one, the first step in organization to collapse, it is pride. You know something, I already know it. I'm not ready to learn. I already know it. That's the beginning of implosion. And you then see these organizations collapsing. Ego, I already know it. Also greed. I must own it alone. And you forget the purpose for which the organization was set up. If a church is set up to make Jesus known, if church is set up for the salvation of souls, and your church is not doing well, I'm speaking to those now who run churches, who run ministries, and it's not doing well. People are not coming to your church anymore. Instead of 50, I, for instance, have those we started ministry together. Till today, they are still pastoring maybe 20 people in one room hired. That kind of church, what you should do is to immediately submit to a bigger church or to a bigger minister and say, I will work under you, sir, so that both of us can make Jesus known. Is it not something we should all work on? I'm speaking now to the speaker, to all of you listening to me. That should be the way we should do it. There should be no reason for church to close down. There should be no reason for whatever. Churches are closing down. It closes out of ego, pride, and you know it also closes out of lack of ideas. Every day is one thing. Everybody come on. It's only one thing. People say, I want another soup. I'm waiting okra. I want to eat ewedu. And that is why churches renew themselves. Organization require renewal. The way that the ego does. We can call it the ego philosophy, or better still, the ego paradigm. Times of renewal. A time in which you want to throw away what no longer works, and you then need to invent what works. And so when we talk about resilience, it's about the capacity to understand. Number one, capacity to understand what doesn't work anymore with you. And to be able to understand that you need what works. And that what works may not be with you, you need it from elsewhere. And you should be humble enough to go to where you can get it. So if you are a ministry, it may be another ministry. If you are, I had the assignment. I want to thank God for that big assignment that Reverend Wilson Badejo gave to me and a couple of other ministers. I don't want to name the ministers so that, because I didn't get their permission. And he then said, we need to reinvent Foursquare. We need to reinvent Foursquare as a church. Among the ministers, there was a high court judge. Among the ministers, there was somebody who owned an accounting firm. Among the ministers was a permanent secretary. Among the ministers were some of those ministers who came when we launched this book. You know, people who know why those ministers came, and some of them would say, our daddy. So all of them, this man brought all of us together. We need to reinvent this church. We need to transition from what is called a Yoruba church, what is called a Lagos church, to be our church, to be a national church. I want to do a presentation. He called it the consultative committee. I want to do it to the elders of the church, that this is the way we want to move. And he set up a committee. And regrettably, I don't want to say regrettably, he put me, I was the least experienced among the people. These were all big men, already pastors and all that. I wasn't a pastor. And he put me as the chairman. Transformation. Transitioning Foursquare onto a national church from a Yoruba church. Because it was perceived, people's perception is their reality. It was perceived as a Yoruba Lagos church. It was not seen as a global church. And this man saw the need. That is what we are talking about. You see a need, rather than pride and geo, I will do it. It's my idea. He then set up a committee, and we were all gathered. And where did we do? I took all of them to Akodo. That time there was no New Lagos. I hear now about New Lagos. We then went there and we dissected what were the problems that we not allowed to transition. So, after dissected the problems, I called the big men. And one of them was the secretary. You know, secretary of the general overseer. He was the secretary of the committee, and I was the chairman. Do you get the point I'm trying to make? So, the secretary is number 2 person in the church. He had to make the person to be the secretary, my secretary, and I was the chairman of the committee. That is humility. It wasn't pride. Humility, you know, for us to solve a problem that he saw as he came as general overseer. And what did I do? I knew I didn't know what was required to transform. I wasn't a general overseer. In fact, what was I? I wasn't even a pastor. And meanwhile, to chair pastors, senior people from different disciplines, veterinary doctors, all of them were in the committee. Lawyers, all were in the committee. What did I do? And I said, well, as a leader, called to be chairman, title, I know that among these people should know more than myself. How do I deal with this issue? I just said, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, can we go and study other ministries that are more successful than us? You, the secretary, national secretary, you will go and study, what do you call it? The replant of the vine. What do you call that book? Transplant of the Vine. It was written by Professor Adeogun. So I gave that to the secretary. I said, you should look at the past. We are not interested in the past. So, but you should help us look at the past. I called another minister. I won't mention the name now. I said, you go and study this other church. This one is growing very, very fast. You go and study this one very, very fast. You go and study this one very, very fast. So I gave assignments to everyone. What did I do? I flew into South Africa. I went to the biggest church in South Africa. I listened to the message of the minister. And at that time, the minister was remarkable. So when I finished the administration, I went to their library and then their bookshop, and then bought a book. And that book was written transitioning. And when I looked, I actually found a whole chapter on the Four Square Church that transformed in the past. Transformation of Four Square in the past. That should be about 50 years ago or whatever. Transformation. I took the book. I read it and read it. I read everything. Then I was now ready to be chairman. So I had to invite back everyone to Akodo. We all went to Akodo. And by the time we got to Akodo, what did we do? Everyone now is to present what are the good points in these churches, why they are doing better than us. So each one gave their own presentation. The national secretary gave presentation on the book written by Professor, I think he's a professor now, Dr. Adeogun. Although that book itself had its own controversies. As at that time, some people said he didn't tell the whole story. Some said he told it from his own perspective. But those of us who were challenging the book, you provide your own version so that we can at least look at your own version of the book. Like somebody now make challenge on the things in this Greek Testament. You bring out your own so that we can now challenge. Is it not what it is? So some people challenge that book that we should not depend on that book. I said we are not depending on the book. We just said we need to know our history. So, and we gave that to the secretary, national secretary of the church. And so, at the end, by the time all of them did the presentation, me, I'd gone to South Africa, I'd taken the book on transitioning, I've read it, I could see how church can transition. So I have learned. Me, I already had my own view before I then sat down as chairman. So when I was down as chairman, I present, and they were all presenting. I already knew what was going to be written down. As they were concluding, we were now reading the communique of what was going to be the direction. And we submitted it to the General Overseer of Foursquare, Nigeria. And that this is the way we think we are going to transition this church from being a Yoruba title church or a Lagos called church to a global church. That it is. Foursquare is a global church. It's not even a Nigerian church. The gentleman was so happy with our presentation that he made me chairman of several other committees and other decisions within Foursquare, Nigeria. My movement got accelerated. So those who were there 30 years before me suddenly saw, who is this man who has come? You know, till today, people are still asking those questions. How did he become a general overseer? The first African to be a general overseer of Foursquare in a non-African country, in an American country. So the issue there about resilience, about this, is that we should all be ready to learn. We should all be able to throw away what doesn't work, as organizations, as individuals. And when you then need to deepen what works. So when you deepen the things that work, what actually it will make you more resilient. And resilience, not that the usual definition is the capacity to overcome adversity. But the truth about it is that there are organizations we know have lived almost 100 years without adversity. So you must learn from your success. But there are those who are moved from one adversity to the other, like we also find in families. Today, this one is dead. The next day, this one then happens. The next day, this one is sick. The next day, whatever. How do you move from one adversity to the other? You also learn from them. And what all that then will do to you is to make you to be strong and be resilient. No matter what happens to you, you will not be consumed by it. When today we see young people going to Tomiland Bridge to jump into the water, we see people taking their lives. Had a relation of ours who went to go and take Otapiapia. You know what they call Otapiapia? It has no English word. If you know the name in English, you can help us. So he went to take Otapiapia and died. Why would somebody take his own life? It's because of lack of resilience. The fellow did not know, was a woman. She can overcome the problem she had. It's overcoming adversity. Adversity means problem, means difficulty. There's no difficulty on earth that we cannot overcome. And that's exactly what. So, my advice to every one of you that is here today is that there is nothing that is happening to you you cannot overcome. Those of you who own businesses and running businesses, and they are in difficult situations, there's no difficult situation that will last forever. You know, I hear some people say that there are situations, tough situations are for a while, tough people, they are able to overcome. They say that tough situation don't last forever. Is it what they say, the way they talk about it? You know, tough people overcome these situations. So, you are going through strong, your business is not moving on well, your family is not moving on well, your marriage is not moving on well, you know, you're having all kinds of challenges. All this will pass away. All this will pass away, and indeed, you will be able to overcome. But I want to counsel you. My counsel to you, I can actually call myself an expert in I can call myself, and I think I qualify to actually call myself an expert in organization, in resilience, because I studied it. It's not just what people just call anybody. It's a resilience. You ask the fellow said next, I say sustainability, because he doesn't really know what it is. So I spent time in studying it for 9.5 years. I myself got the baptism of failed companies. I got baptism of successful companies, baptism of failed churches, baptism of successful churches. I've gone through all, and today I can actually stand, you know, to help those who are in difficult circumstances, certain situations. So if you know you are in difficult circumstances, concerning your life or your business or indeed your ministry, you don't know how to go, I will encourage you. It's not just a question of promotion. It's who knows the way that can lead the way. And I can still remember in Haggai Institute where we were taught, leaders are those who know the way. They should be the ones to lead the way. But today, what are leaders? What do you find leaders? They stay at the back. And they won't follow how to lead the way. If you remember what Paul said, he said, follow me. Leaders lead. They stay at the front. And that is why I'm calling you, I'm inviting you. You are going through all those problems, and what we've shared at this forum, at this platform, is not enough. You need more. Go and get this book. Go and get it. The next thing you need to do, get a godly mentor. A godly mentor, not just a godly mentor, because there are godly mentors who are not themselves strong in organizational resilience. They don't even know what resilience is, even though they are godly mentors. Get godly mentors who themselves are resilient. They have personal resilience. So when you have those godly mentors, you complement it with this book, you complement with what we've shared on this platform. I do know that you certainly will overcome whatever challenge you are going through. So I want to stop at this point. I want to thank all of you by sparing your time to be with us today. I want to thank the organizers, particularly Mindshare, my co-convener. I want to thank you so much for making this possible. And I know that there will be some of us who may have some questions. Some of us may have some interventions. You have ideas on this topic and you want to share some interventions. I'm going to hand over to the moderator now. They will take all those questions and interventions. Thank you so much for coming.